memory from each of them.
Okay.
And I thought I'd have her read it because there's times when Jessica and I've been talking that Johnny goes, she sounds just like Aunt Chrissy. So I go, I have her read it. Are we live yet, Sharon? Are we live, Sharon, as far as you know? We are live. All right. I'd just like to welcome everybody. Thank you all for coming, those near, those far, for the love and support. When I would get Mom up in the morning, she'd kind of let the dizziness pass, and then she'd start saying, "Oh, thus be we ever." And she said it often enough that one time I go, I need to look that up. So I looked it up, and then I was reading it. "Oh, thus be it ever when free men shall stand between their loved home and war's desolation. Blessed with victory and peace, may the heaven-rescued land praise the power that hath made and preserved us a nation. Then conquered we must when our course it is just, and this be our motto, in God is our trust. And the star-spangled banner in triumph shall wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave." By Francis Scott Key. But the thing that amazed me is, the last few years of Mom's life, she did fight with dementia, and I go, that was something she probably memorized in elementary school, probably for her. And so when I started reading it, you know, I'd pause and she'd continue on with what it was saying. And I go, isn't that something that's just absolutely fascinating with the human mind, that something that she would have memorized probably, I would say 10-ish would be my guess. And sometimes that's just what would come back. So that was amazing to me. So Mom had a plaque that read, "Bookkeepers never die, they just lose their balance." And on September 1st, 2019, Mom lost her balance. She fell and she broke her pelvis, and after a 3-day stay in the hospital, she was transferred to the Delta Care Center, where she underwent rehabilitation for 2 months. She was able to return home on November 1st, 2019, where she remained until her passing, September 14th, 2021, at 3:04 p.m. And the time of her passing for David and I was just significant because our childhood home address was 304. And if you ever have those times and seasons that you go through, that you wonder, you know, God, do you know where in the universe I am? And then you have something that is so profound like that. And her last breath was at 3:04. And you just feel the hand of God upon you, and he says, yes, I know exactly where you are at. And your tears matter, and you matter. Anybody who knew Mom knew that she was an avid reader, she loved classical music, and she had a sense of humor that remained to the end. In those last few days where we couldn't get her out of bed or anything, and David and I were caring for her, and she'd get kind of squished down in the bed and we'd have to haul her up. And she'd laugh every time. And it was such a precious gift. It was such a precious gift. So because she loved humor, I'm going to have to share humor with all of you, if I can. And I've told my children that they may need to rescue me if I start laughing hysterically. But this is just part of how it was. Because of our former small-town parish was not a wealthy one, our pastor was dependent upon parishioners for upkeep and maintenance of the church. Once he asked my husband, Sam, to rewire the confessionals. The only way to reach the wiring was to enter the attic above the altar, crawl over the ceiling by balancing on the rafters. Concerned for my husband's safety, I waited in a pew. Unbeknownst to me were some parishioners in the congregation vestibule. They paid little attention to me, probably assuming that I was praying. But worried about my husband, I looked up toward the ceiling and yelled, "Sam! Sam, are you up there? Did you make it okay?" There was an outburst from the vestibule when Sam's hearty voice echoed, "Yes, I made it up here just fine." So, my mom is laughing with us. We would sit around and read the Reader's Digest until tears were just streaming down our cheeks. So Ina Marie Minor Sturlin of Jackson Hole, Wyoming, passed away on September 14th, 2021 at home in Eskdale, Utah. Ina was born on February 11th, 1928 in Palmyra, Utah, to Pernice and Grant Minor. She grew up in Springville, Utah, and graduated in 1946. The summer of 1946 she spent in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, working at Teton Laundry. There she met Guy Leroy Sturlin, who delivered the laundry. They were married on November 25th, 1946. They moved to Santa Barbara, California, while Guy attended the University of California and Santa Barbara Business College. In 1954, Guy was hired by the state of Wyoming to work in the land office at the state capitol in Cheyenne, Wyoming, where they remained until 1988, when they returned to their beloved Jackson Hole. When they moved to Cheyenne, Ina took a night class to learn bookkeeping. After completing the class, Guy and Ina ran a bookkeeping business out of their home. While raising 4 children, Ina volunteered at the hospital, a local art gallery, and regularly at her children's elementary schools. She could always be found helping her neighbors, from mowing their lawn to feeding their cats, taking them to medical appointments and the grocery store, or passing along a fresh loaf of hot bread. Whenever there was a need, Ina was always there to serve with a willing and a happy heart. In 1978, Guy and Ina bought a small cafe, the Coffee Cup, where Ina quickly became the heart and soul of the place. She insisted on using real potatoes for hash browns, and her homemade cinnamon roll and chilies were legendary. In 1988, Ina returned to Jackson to care for Guy's mother until she passed in 1993. Ina immediately began volunteering 5 days a week at the Teton County Library in the children's section and repairing books. In 1993, she began volunteering 5 days a week at the Senior Center, delivering meals to homebound residents and helping in the kitchen. She quickly became the favorite of the residents and the workers alike. In 1999, she was awarded the Senior of the Year Award, and her name was inscribed on a plaque that is displayed in the Senior Center to this day. Ina was always known as the person who went beyond the call of duty. In October of 2007, Guy and Ina were moved to Estill, Utah, where 2 of their children resided and could help aid in their care. Ina is survived by 1 sister, Nancy Schultz of Orem, Utah, and 4 children, Philip of Granbury, Texas, David of Estill, Utah, Christine Selvey of Alt, Colorado, and Mary Jo Waite of Estill, Utah, 22 grandchildren, 37 great-grandchildren, and 3 great-great-grandchildren. She is preceded in death by her parents, 4 brothers, and 4 sisters. She was dearly loved by all and will be greatly missed. The family would like, I don't need to read that part. even if it's still true. So, and I'm going to share another humor. Pickup trucks pulling horse trailers began to converge at the county fair. An obviously frustrated woman was trying to turn a trailer around, maneuvering it back and forth between a bank on the one side of a narrow road and a ditch on the other, when traffic came to a halt. A man got out of his car, walked up to the window of the truck and said, "Take your time. Everybody has a bad day now and then." "You think this is bad," she said. "I forgot the horse." And to represent Philip and his family, I am going to let Michael get up and say some words. And which mic would you like? Okay, I'll sit in your chair then.
Oh, wow. Thank you all so much for being here to help us send off a very, very, very special person. I was her first grandchild. I was blessed to have a grandmother until 2 days before my 47th birthday. So I figure that was pretty good time. And to kind of build on what Aunt Mary said, she's one who developed my love of reading. The last year I have found myself switching over to the NPR classical station more often, just because as I'm driving, it's like, this really helps calm me. So she was onto something with that. And the humor part, I was thinking about this, and after high school, I moved back up to Jackson to live with Grandma and Grandpa for a while. And Grandpa was on a trip somewhere. It was just Grandma and I. We were watching this movie, and I can't remember what year it is, but the movie was Pure Country that had George Strait. And we got through the whole movie, and there was a little bit of cussing. And I was kind of sitting there going, I'm watching this with my grandmother. I can't believe this. We got through the end, And she's like, you know which line I like the best, Michael? I'm like, no, very trepidatiously. She said, well, it's when the old man said the white stuff on top of chicken poop, still chicken poop. So don't ever get too big for your britches. I'm like, and that was 30 some odd years ago, and I think about that all the time. So she was a unique individual that will never be replaced or replicated. And although, if you look around this room, she's been replicated many, many times. And I look out and I see her eyes everywhere. As I've gotten older, I've started to see her in myself, mostly in my gestures. I'll do something, I'm like, that's Grandma's hand. Or I'll say something, I'm like, well, I learned that from Grandma. And Grandpa too, I mean, both of them, you just start to take stock as you get older on where you came from on many, 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 many different levels. And it's such a blessing that where I came from is shown all around this room. And so thank you guys so much for helping us honor this wonderful lady who obviously touched you in ways that, you know, she touched us as a family member, but she never met a stray. So if you knew Grandma, you were part of the family. So thank you so much for coming and helping all of us to say, we remember you, you are not forgotten, and we'll see you soon. So thank you.
And my sister was not able to be here, so we are live streaming so that she can participate that way along with other family members. But she did send me an email, and so Jessica is going to read her memories from her family for us. You want that one?
Okay, can y'all hear me? I need the mic. Okay, so yeah, this is from starting with her kids and then Paul and then Christine. So this first one is from Rachel. If I cry, I'm sorry. I remember when we would go to Jackson and Grandma Ina worked at the library. I remember walking down the alley and going to visit her at the library. We would pick out books and hang out with Grandma while she was at work. We even got to check in some of the returned books. As I got older, I would pick out multiple chapter books and spend time reading with Grandma. As we were reading, she had her special chocolate box, and we would eat several while we were reading. I also remember the raspberry bushes behind the garage. Grandma showed us how good it was to eat raspberries in a bowl with cream and sugar. And that one's from Rachel. Whenever I missed Grandma Ina, I would eat some chocolate, listen to some classical music, and read a book. I love how she started to eat her dessert first to ensure she had room for it. That one's from Becca. I didn't like to read when I was in middle school, but as I got older, I found I liked reading books. I can remember talking with Grandma about some of the same books we had read. And that one's from Ben. I remember going to Jackson in the summer and Grandma making raspberry freezer jam. She always said that the freezer jam was for Paul, my dad, but I always had some too. I always remember her sitting in her room reading library books. And that one's from Tim. I remember Ina's smiling face at the Coffee Cup Cafe. During the years that Guy and Ina owned the Coffee Cup, it was Ina who worked hard to make the business a success. I loved her family, and I remember her picture wall that she had on her closet door in Jackson, and that's from Paul. The memories that I remember are Mom's servant heart. This is from Christine. It was in her nature to take care of others. Sorry, Christine. Oh dear. We had a neighbor that was a widow, and Mom would take her grocery shopping when she could no longer drive, taking her something to eat when she was sick, and shovel her sidewalks in the winter. She volunteered at the Wyoming State Museum and the library. She also signed up to be a room mother at school. That meant that she was responsible for refreshments during our school parties. I can remember one year that she made a Rudolph cake. It was the hit of the party. I still have the cake decorating book with the Rudolph cake instructions. Mom also loved music. It seems like she always had the radio on or listening to her stereo. When I got older, I was able to go to a few concerts at the Cheyenne Civic Center with her. When we were in Jackson for the 4th of July, we would go over to the high school for the afternoon concert. Mom would find a nice shady spot to put her chair and bring a book to read while she listened to the different performers. I feel so blessed to have had a mom that was a homemaker. On cold, wintry days, I can remember coming home from school and getting to our front door and smelling homemade bread, baking, and chili on the stove. Thank you, Mom, for the Christian heritage that you gave to me and the desire to serve others. By your example of letting your light shine before men, the Father has been glorified by your life. I am sure that when you entered his presence, he said, "Well done, you good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of my presence." We all miss you, but your memories are alive in all of our hearts. Chris.
Thank you, family. Now that there's not a dry eye in the house, I'm going to read you some more humor. One cold night, my furnace died, so I went to my parents' house. In the morning, a neighbor called to tell me that my water pipes had burst and flooded my townhouse and hers. I raced home, and on the way, I got a speeding ticket. Then the furnace repairman arrived and told me that he didn't think that he had the proper fuse, but that he would check in his truck. Meanwhile, the plumber had cut holes in the bathroom to try to locate the leak. When the furnace repairman returned, he held aloft a fuse. "I had the right one," he said triumphantly. "This must be your lucky day." And in line with my mom's love for classical music and also living down the highway from the Childs family and hearing Brother Doug and family members play music their whole life, Dallas Hayward is going to bless us with a musical piece to honor Mom. So thank you very much, Dallas. Okay, I can see my mother in absolute rapture for that. So Dallas, thank you. The Childs family has been blessing our family with incredible music for decades. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So my Aunt Nancy is going to bravely come up and share a few things and maybe share a few memories that maybe we don't even know about Mom. So, Aunt Nancy. And do you want to hold this, or do you want this?
If you can't hear me, raise your hand and I will
Tip it towards you.
toward me.
That should be good.
I am not a loudspeaker, so I don't know if you want to hear me. There were 10 in the Minor family. There were 6 girls. She was number 3 and I was number 6. She was 15 years older than I was, so I did not get to know her when I was young. But when I graduated from high school, she graciously opened her home to me and let me come and live with her and enjoy her family. And my two oldest boys were privileged to be able to grow up with Mary and Christine. And I am so grateful to her for the example that she set for me. And before I start crying, I want to say what Mary told me when I would call her and ask how Ina was doing, and she'd say, well, I think I passed my expiration date. And Mary would say, well, you're still here, so you haven't passed your date. Maybe you passed the best if used by date. And I appreciate Mary and her family and David for taking care of Ina and for being so good to her. She never wanted to live to be 100. My oldest brother said, well, Grandpa Minor lived to be 100, I can do that too. And he made it to 92, and so Ina was the longest living of the siblings, which was never her desire. But I learned so many things from her. She was my second mother in Wyoming. When I had my children, she was there. She actually took me to the hospital several times for the birth of my second child because he couldn't make up his mind if he really wanted to come or not. But she was there and took care of me and set the example for being a good wife and a mother and for the service. Ina never cared about material things. They were never important to her. But the service that she provided is legendary. For everyone. She worked at the senior center, she worked at the library, she went to the hospital, she read to the shut-ins, anything she could do to help someone else. And she was the example for me. And I echo Christine where she said, I'm sure when she went through the veil, it was, well done, thou good and faithful servant. And I appreciate her. And all of you for the love you shared with her. Thank you. Thank you.
My mom always said that in such a small community, there was so much talent at such a high caliber. So we have heard from Dallas, and now Melanie Heckathorn is going to come and offer another musical offering that my mom would be thrilled with. Set you this
Still
way.
to stand. If that's all right.
Uh-huh. Do you want me to take everything off it for you? You can put it over it. Do you need it lower? Perfect.
I have my notes.
And I don't know how to do twist. Oh, I don't know how to do it.
Bend the top.
Just bend the top down. Just do
That'll
that.
work. Can you hear me? Sort of? Something?
Good? Maybe not? Good? Okay. I come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses, and He walks with me, and He talks with me, and He tells me I am His own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. He speaks, and the sound of His voice is so sweet. The birds hush their singing, and the melody that He gave to me within my heart is ringing, and He walks with me, and He talks with me, and He tells me I am His own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. I stay in the garden with Him, though the night be falling around me, but He bids me go through the voice of woe. His voice to me is calling, and He walks with me, and He talks with me, and He tells me I am His own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known.
Melanie?
You're so welcome. I'm more than happy. For you guys.
Another one that my mom would just be thanking Him for that offering. So I'm going to read you something funny again. My real name is Wilton, but everyone at the plastic factory calls me Dub, and that's where the confusion began. A woman from the front office came in with a form to fill out, but when she asked for my name, I wasn't sure which one to give. Waiting patiently for me to make up my mind, she says, "I don't have any easier questions." I'll read another one. Don't you ever have days like that, though? Computers are great for modernizing the world, putting information at our fingertips and keeping techies busy answering silly questions like these. Tech support. Click on the My Computer icon on the left of the screen. Customer. Do you mean your left or mine? I'm afraid that I'd be one of those with the techie, your left or mine. Now we're going to hear from David and his family.
And we're hearing from other parts of the family too.
I'm going to make this quick.
But you need to stay.
But I what?
Stay.
I get to stay too. David took me up to Jackson to meet Papa Guy and Mama Ina. And I believe we were already engaged, right? Mm-hmm. To be married. I was so nervous. I was so stressed. They put me in the top little bedroom in the gigantic log cabin home that they had up there by myself. I don't do well sleeping in new places. I'm generally an insomniac. That night, I slept like a rock. No dreaming. I got up and I slept late, and I came downstairs, and Mama Ina was at the kitchen table in the kitchen. And I was so shocked at how great I felt, how refreshed I felt. What a wonderful night it had been. And I shared that with her, and you know what she said to me? "You must be home." And all the rest of the time that I got to hang with her, I always felt like I was at home.
So when you know someone for 72 years, how do you put it in one of those little capsules so that you can swallow it? The thing that just kept reoccurring, and this is like 2 weeks, I was thinking, what would I say in memory of Mom? And I remember that, okay, so Mom carried me for 9 months, and I was born, and the next 11 to 13 years, she kept trying to save my life. I kept wondering how come I always loved the color red. So in case any of you ever wonder what my favorite color is, buy me a red rose or a red car, and, and I'll be happy. She says, well, because you kept running out in the street, I had to dress you in red clothes so you wouldn't get killed. So she saved my life over and over again, and she did until the time of her passing. She continued to give wisdom and counsel and love and concern all the days of her life. And the other thing that occurred to me when Dallas was playing is I played the saxophone and Dad played the saxophone. So she was in the back cabin at Jackson, and I went in and asked her, "What's your favorite musical instrument?" And I knew she was going to say the saxophone. She says, "The radio." Because there was a classical station in Idaho Falls that she could play every day. And I thought, oh, what a killer. So I'm going to ask all of my family to come up and stand and face the camera so that Christine can see them all. So everybody that's here, come on up. Little kids, everybody. And just start making a horseshoe up here. So if we ever want to start our own congregation, And Jackson, if you want to join us, you can. He says, no way. So when I talked to Christine on the phone, I said that I'd blow her a kiss. Anybody want to say anything? Thank you so much. Love you all.
So kisses not only to Christine, but Corey and possibly Malachi and Matthew are also going to join us live. So to all of our loved ones. And Corey did send a message on our Facebook link. So I'm going to read this. This is from Corey Pickering. It says that she would just love to say how much she appreciated Ina. As a new wife and a mother, Mom inspired Corey to be the best that she could be. So, thank you, Corey. And I'm going to share something funny with you again. One of our patients wasn't taking any chances prior to her operation. She taped notes all over her body for the surgeon. Take your time. Don't cut yourself. No need to rush. Wash your hands, etc. After surgery, as I was helping her back into bed, we discovered a new note taped to her. This one was from the doctor. Has anyone seen my watch? And I had to do a few from Humor in Uniform. My father was often away on lengthy tours of duty, leaving my mother to manage 5 kids by herself. While he was away, we used to sneak into their room to sleep. So before shipping out one time, Dad reminded us to respect Mom's space and to sleep in our own rooms. Upon his return, as he disembarked the plane with the rest of his unit, my brother ran up and jumped into his arms and gladly announced, "Dad, you're going to be so happy. While you were gone this time, nobody slept with Mom." Can't you just see a little kid doing that? This is what my mom and we would just love. We would read these and we would just be rolling because it's like, can't you just see yourself in that situation? And my dad would kind of go, I just don't get it. We're like, Dad. So one last one on this one. The first thing I noticed when I picked up my clothes from the off-base laundry was that they reeked. So the next week, when I sent my clothes over with a note kind of complaining, my laundry had a peculiar musty odor when I got it back. When my clothes were returned, I found the note following. And how do you think they smelled when we got them? So on the back of the program, you'll see a picture of Mom in bed with Brinley. Now, the last few years of her life, she was affectionately named Gigi, because when Brinley started to talk and she came to visit, when we would call Mom Grandma, she would say that Grandma couldn't be Grandma because I was Grandma. And so we were explaining that, well, she was great grandma. Well, you know, when you're learning to talk, it's hard. So instead of great grandma, she just became Gigi. So in the last few years of her life, she was given a new name by Brinley, and that was Gigi. And so when I was putting her to bed one night, Brinley jumped in bed and she was reassuring Gigi that she was going to keep her safe. So, and Nancy beat me to the punchline on this one because I wanted to share that too, because I thought it was so funny. So many times when I'd go in to see how Mom was doing, she'd just say, "I think I've passed my expiration date." And I'd always say, "Well, now how could you pass your expiration date if you're still here?" And she goes, "Well, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that I passed it." So one day I did. I just responded to her and I go, "Well, I don't think you've passed your expiration date, but perhaps you've exceeded the best if used by date since you're here." So I also have would anybody in my family like to come and share? Do you want to? Okay, Emily has a musical piece that she would also like to play for us. So.
So I'll try to communicate what I feel today. Thought a lot about Grandma Ina and who she was as a person. And we've heard a lot of things about her that described who she was, but who we are at a core level has always been kind of a mystery to me. Those who know me, there's probably not a day goes by that I don't get riled up about something. I was either born that way or, I don't know what the deal is, but in all the years Grandma Ina lived in our house, I never saw her riled about anything or anyone. And whatever the soul she had at that core level was just amazing to me. Was oftentimes I reflected on that, when she didn't feel well, when she couldn't get around, when things she was so used to doing she couldn't do, she just didn't say. And hope I can be anywhere close to that when I'm old and grumpy.
Yeah, and that is so true. And you could tell even on her no good, rotten, horrible, terrible days, and she'd just look at you and she'd just, say, I love you. And that's how she responded. My kids are all crying. I don't know. Do any of the rest of you want to?
So earlier this week, my coworker had made me cheesecake for my birthday, and I had taken it home, and Stephanie, Aaron's mother, was making dinner, and I was dishing myself up a slice, and some of the kids were just looking at me like, you haven't had dinner yet. And I had dished up a slice for Stephen and Stephanie both, and I was like, as my grandma would say, you always eat your dessert first. And Aaron's dad, Stephen, was like, boy, she knew how to live. So that was always a good memory of Grandma. And after I moved out of the house and I would come home and visit, and Grandma would be sitting at the table, and I could always just hear our noise box is home. So I'm the family noise box.
Yep, Grandma would always say that of Jamie, when they made that one, they broke the mold. And speaking of eating dessert first, Dean always kind of had a little running rib with my mom, because on Sabbath she'd be over there eating her dessert, and sometimes before he had said the prayer. And so if she got dessert in her before the prayer was said, then that one didn't count. So then she got dessert after the prayer too. So as you've heard, my mom volunteered at the library. And in Teton County, there was another lady, Linda, who worked at the library, and the old library was just down the alleyway from the cabin of Mom and Dad. And so where they did the repairs of the books and stuff like that, it was just this really teeny tiny room. And Linda said, you could hear each other breathing in that room. So she said they shared, a very close space. So she said we couldn't help but form a bond. And she said Ina missed her kids, and I missed my mom. So she said we just fell into this mother-daughter relationship. So on the picture table in the center, I have a picture of Linda, so you can put a face to Linda. But Linda wanted to share this tribute to Mom. Ina came into my life when my husband Jim and I moved to Jackson, Wyoming in 1991. If she were here today, she would introduce me as her third daughter, Linda. We worked together at the Teton County Library in a teeny tiny basement room where you could literally hear each other breathing. In those conditions, it didn't take long to figure out that we were kindred souls. We loved reading lighthearted romance novels, eating anything chocolate, and laughing at silly jokes. Since Ina missed her daughters and I missed my mom, we easily developed a mother-daughter relationship. Because of that, I have many years worth of sweet memories. It is hard to choose what to share with you today, but here is one of my favorites. Even though Ina personally loathed raspberries, she became the keeper of her mother-in-law Mary's prized patch on their homestead in Jackson. Every year she harvested just enough to make a freezer full of jam for Guy, and then invited friends and co-workers to pick the remainder. Year after year, on hot August afternoons, Ina would visit with me while I embedded myself deep in the thicket of with the ants, the spiders, and the thorns to harvest those elusive red jewels. Offers of raspberry pie in repayment were always refused with a physical shudder. She would never tell me why she had such an aversion to raspberries. I was thrilled one year when she asked me to make her a gooseberry pie with some fruit that she had been given. Never having eaten or cooked a gooseberry pie before, I was pretty nervous, but it turned out beautifully, and she got the whole pie to herself except for one bite that turned me inside out. Oh, and by the way, Ina finally did tell me why she didn't like raspberries. Apparently, as a child, her bedding became infested with bed bugs that smelled like raspberries when you squished them. Yikes. That was almost enough to turn me off of raspberries for life. In those early years when Ina and I were first working together, I suffered horribly with migraines, and one afternoon, Jim could not get away from work to take me home. Living only a block away from the library, Ina took me to her house and put me to bed. I still remember the darkened room and the cool sheets and her soothing hand on my face as she tucked me in and then returned to work. The sweetness of that motherly touch bound me with her forever, and through that, to all of you. Thank you, Mary, Christine, David, and Philip, for sharing your mother with me. I am so lucky to have a woman like her in my life. And that's from Linda. And now I just want to open it to anybody else who knew Mom that has a memory that you would like to share. So we'll just...
It's good to see you all. When you live as close to each other as we do, you kind of get invested in each other. And Ina shared something with all of us, and I'm one that really enjoyed it, and that's a sense of humor. And I was teaching a study class, and as I often do, I use rather profane sources. And this time it happened to be Patrick McManus. And if you've never read Patrick McManus, this is something you need to add to your repertoire. And I was reading a story that he wrote about sequences. And what this story tells, his father, his stepdad, wanted to go fishing. And Pat was all for this, let's go fishing. But then his stepdad said, let's go fix the fence first. And Pat had to explain to him, if we go fix the fence, then you're going to find out that I lent the fence stretcher to the neighbor. And then you're also going to find that the wire is down at the store. And he said, either you pick, we're going to go fishing, or we're going to fix the fence. And then he talked about sequences, and it's a vortex that sucks you down in. And I laughed and laughed at that, and I ended up giving all of my Patrick McManus books to Ina so she could read them and we could laugh together. And I remember she would always come to the Sabbath meal, and I'd always go up and say, how are you doing today, Ina? Fair to middling. Anybody here ever heard her say that? And one thing about her that I've never forgotten and never will, you know, there's something when someone, you've lived around someone, they become a part of your life. Even when they go, they never leave. They're still there. She always had a twinkle in her eye. Did you ever, any of you notice that? And when you look up in the stars tonight, you'll see a star twinkling and you'll know Ina's still here.
Ina was my aunt. My mother is her sister, and I'd just like to say she's one of the finest people that I ever knew. She embodies so many of the biblical attributes that we try and attain. You know, you mentioned in the scriptures about someone that was without guile. Ina was like that, humble, giving service. And she amazed me, as you mentioned, how I was amazed how slow she was to anger. I used to work with her at the copy cut, and she taught me, like she cut her finger or something bad would happen to her, and most of us would react in anger or maybe even utter a profanity or something like that, but she would stop and take a breath, and instead of saying the opposite, she said, "God bless it." And I was amazed. I'd never seen anything like that before. So it just amazed me that she would, just take the time instead of in anger, just the opposite when something bad like that would happen to her. So she's always inspired me to just, try and do better. It was amazing. It seemed like it just came so natural to her. So I'm just glad to have known her.
Years ago when we held convocations out here in June, and when we first started, we would have church members and people that were associated with us that lived in this different areas besides Eskdale. They would come out and help us for a whole week, and we'd do special projects like weeding the big garden and too early for fruit, but the men would work in the shop or wherever we needed help. And they would also bring food. And in the early days, most everything that we ate was homemade. We didn't get what we called store-bought food very often. And the first time I met Ina, she brought down 2 little girls that were near my age, and she drove a truck with a camper on it. And I was amazed about that because I had heard of her and I knew that she lived in Cheyenne, and to travel all that distance in a truck with a camper and 2 little sweet girls, and she brought store-bought cookies. I will never forget that. And over the years, I've had association with Ina through the House of Aaron. And the thing that I will always remember with Ina was her faithfulness. Wherever she was at, wherever she lived, her faithfulness shone.
Well, we've covered more than once the 2 subjects that remind me the most of Ina. One is her sense of humor. The other is dessert. And I didn't know Ina really well outside of the meals and living at Johnny and Mary's house, but and I didn't know them at all from Jackson or any of that, although I knew David pretty well. Anyway, in the early 90s, my boss and I were going to Cleveland a lot on a project, and there was this Italian restaurant, and marvelous food, and we'd go in and we'd eat. After about the 3rd time, we never made it to dessert. The menu was too big. And so we looked at each other and we said, listen, the next time we go in there and eat, we're going to eat in reverse order. We're going to order dessert first, and we'll work our way back to the salad. So when we moved out here in '96, then we were here for a while, and then Ina moved out here. And so I saw her sit down, and I don't know, we got chatting or something anyway, and I said, well, Ina, you should eat dessert first. And I kind of told her part of this story, and she looked at me and she said, I've known that for years. Enough said.
Anybody else? Well, again, we would like to just thank everybody for coming and sharing. We're going to close with a song, and it's the song that John Denver sang, "Take Me Home, Country Roads." And there's a line in it that says, driving down the road, I get that feeling that I should have been home yesterday. But this was a song when I was talking to my sister, and as you've heard, Mom usually had the radio on, and when we were reminiscing, we said, yeah, "Take Me Home, Country Roads" was one that would play often on the radio, and Mom just, you know, her foot would get a tap into it. So Melanie is going to grace us with another vocal.
Okay, are we good? Mic check, mic check. Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountain, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, blowing like a breeze. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West
Beautiful. Just a few acknowledgments. I'd like to thank Kenneth for his creative genius with the program. He always does such a beautiful job, so Kenneth, thank you. Sharon, for your support, technology. Dean, thank you for coming in and making sure that we could hear this. I think Corey and Christine and all of her family, I know I got a few texts that came through that they were able to see it. They've been able to hear and see that. So the wonders of technology, it's amazing that you can participate in things like that. So we want to invite all of you to join us over to the center. We've got nothing good for you. We have everything to just feed your soul, lots of chocolate and goodies, some of Mom's favorites. So please just come and join some goodies. We have a few pictures and that over there, and just come as we finish celebrating her life. And thank you all for coming.